Saints quarterback Derek Carr talks being in New Orleans and missing multiple games. This is from NewOrleans.football. This interview right here, I believe, is after the Bucs game. It looks like that might be when he got back from Tampa. Regardless, it's after the season. Interesting spot for Carr. Carr certainly, I would think, wants to be back in New Orleans, but he doesn't want to. He has said that he is willing to restructure his deal, but he's not willing to take a pay cut, which is always interesting. I don't know if that's in this interview. I was reading that in an article, but interesting spot for Carr. Interesting spot for the franchise. We've talked about that a little bit in the last 24 hours. But I do want to hear what Carr has to say, so we're going to listen. And we're going to react.
Derek, we haven't had a chance to talk to you since the injury. How are you doing with everything and the way the end of the season went?
Yeah, I'm probably still a little bit away from getting cleared from all of that stuff. But I did everything I could to try and be out there and appreciative to the organization and, to Coach Riz, for, giving me that chance. Because I think it's always important to my teammates for me to do everything as the quarterback, as a captain, as a leader, to do everything you can to be out there for them. And so they saw me here every day trying to, shoot it up and trying to do all these different kind of things. It didn't come down to certain things. It came down to just I couldn't hold a football, and it's kind of important to do. Ended up not working out, but I'm very appreciative of them giving me every opportunity to try and be out there till the last second.
Derek, how tough was that for you not to be able to play toward the end?
It sucked. This is most games I've ever missed, and on something so crazy too. And the hard part is, we were doing some things really well, and it was really, really fun to play in this system. Really fun to play for these coaches and with this team and my teammates. And to not be out there, it broke my heart. You feel like, yes, they're freak things, but you always feel like, just as a human, you may not let them down. And
yeah, I've said this a few times, and it bears repeating. Like, a lot of what's happened to the Saints over the last couple of years is this insane, mixture of either unfortunate circumstances or bad luck or a combination of both. There were so many times where, really just look at the last two seasons, where you can sit there and be like, well, if Carr doesn't get hurt in Green Bay, if Carr, all of a sudden then Saints possibly 10 wins, possibly division champions, possibly playoff team. Then you're looking at this year, it's like, yeah, there were some good things, and then this player got injured, and then even when McCoy goes out, okay, well, we're still rocking and rolling, and then Carr gets hurt the first time, Rattler comes in, then when Rattler's in, Olave gets hurt, McCoy's already hurt, Taysom's hurt, then, Carr's back, but McCoy's out. Okay, McCoy's back, but Carr's out. Rattler's back in. Now Kamara's out. The stuff that was just happening, it just seemed like the Saints could never get anything together to truly see what this team, what this coaching staff, what Derek Carr, what any of the players could do together. And, the unfortunate thing is that time goes on. And even though all of those things I just mentioned were unfortunate, it still was a year or 2 years of these players' career. It still was 2 years of Derek Carr's time with New Orleans. It still was a year of Alvin Kamara's career. Those things, we can absolutely put our hands up and say, yeah, this was not Carr's fault. This was not blank player's fault. This was not blank player's fault. But it was another year on their contract. It was another year towards their career being over, and things just happen. And Rizzi is a good example of that, and Kubiak, where, yeah, you can sit there and say, absolutely, Rizzi did some good things. Absolutely, Kubiak did some good things. And, they may be looking for a new job, really kind of to no fault of their own, more of just, what are you going to do? You had practice squad players, and you had a team that was out of the playoffs, and unfortunately, you'll be judged on how that all played out. But really tough couple of years as far as luck and just circumstances for the Saints.
You never want to let your teammates down and not be out there for them, and so that breaks your heart. And our teammates are great about reminding you there's nothing you can do about injuries and things like that, but you still, just as a competitor, feel bad about it.
Derek, what would you like to see happen in the offseason?
I like to get healthy. I'd like my body to feel good when I wake up. That's number one. I'd love to take my wife on some more dates. That's going to be a lot of fun. Moving into our place in Fresno. Excited about that for my kids to finally have a place they can call home. Because instead of we've moved a lot. And they've been asking me where are we going to grow up forever. And so we always told them Fresno. Now we get to do that. And so they're excited about that. And so I'm excited about those things in the off season.
That stuff's so crazy to me. Like, we'll see how it all plays out, but it's crazy that it's insane to think about moving into a house in Fresno, which, if you're not near a map, is in California, where it's like, I'm moving into Fresno. Where do you work? I work in New Orleans. It's like, that's just a crazy concept. It's a crazy idea. And I understand when you're worth north of $100 million, like, it's not a big deal to get a condo or an apartment or something for, however long you're in New Orleans and keep your family in Fresno, but still a wild life athletes live.
Football takes a little bit of a back seat, when it's family time. And so
Big picture.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've had none but time to think about everything. And I'm excited. The number one thing is I have to get healthy. I got to take care of myself. And then the rest after that is really out of my hands. I've had great conversations with everyone in this building, with Mickey, with Miss Benson, with everybody, and we all have mutual feelings, and so my confidence level is very high, in what can happen, what could happen, and we've shown what it could possibly be at times, and the hard part is we had to deal with some stuff that we didn't get to see that full picture all the time. So we'll see. A lot of that's out of our control, and and as players, you show up and give your best every day. But we'll see what happens.
Let me explain this again for the people in the back, because I keep getting this question. The question is not, is Derek Carr the best option at quarterback for the Saints? That is obviously yes. Derek Carr is obviously better at quarterback right now than Spencer Rattler. No doubt about it. No one is arguing that. That is not the question. Unfortunately, a lot of the times in the NFL or in professional sports, that's not really relevant. What's relevant is these windows, the timing, the contracts, everyone else's contracts, the window and timeline that they have lined up with certain players. So when Carr talks about a lot of that's not in my control, he's right. A lot of the decisions that will be made, really think about what's about to happen. First things first, the Saints have to decide on the head coaching situation. They could go with Darren Rizzi. They could say, you know what? They're right. We did do some good things. We really didn't have an opportunity to see what the whole picture looked like. Maybe we do roll this thing back with Rizzi and Kubiak and see what it looks like put together. Obviously, you're not going to roll it back with certain players. Certain players are going to just retire or not be brought back. A lot of players are on one-year deals. A lot are deals that are over, and they're going to end up moving on from. A lot of players are older, injured, a combination of both. But maybe you do roll it back with Kubiak and Rizzi. Okay. Then you go to the next step. Financially, what are we going to do with Derek Carr? Here's the deal. He has a guaranteed roster bonus where if he is on the roster at the start of next season, and I don't mean week 1, I mean the league calendar, when the next league, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, each NFL year has a calendar, and that begins in the summer. Totally separate from the week 1. Week 1 is the schedule start, but the league calendar begins in the summer. If Carr is on the roster when that begins, he gets $30 million guaranteed, no questions asked. If he is released post June 1, the Saints would save that $30 million. Now, that has nothing to do with the dead cap, has nothing to do with anything else that was already guaranteed, whatever. But that is the big crux of this conversation. Do the Saints want to make a move to save that $30 million guarantee, roster bonus guarantee, or not. That is the first step with Carr. It's not about his completion percentage. It's not about his record. It's not about he's a leader. It's not about all that stuff. It's not about is he better than Spencer Rattler. It's not about how many wins. It's not about how many losses. It's about the financial structure of everything. That's the first conversation they're going to have. Now, back that thing up. If they don't go with Rizzi, if they don't go with Kubiak again, that's a whole other variable. What does the incoming coach want to do? What vision do they have for the New Orleans Saints? Does that vision involve Derek Carr? Does that vision involve a lot of these other players? Does it involve Spencer Rattler? Does it involve drafting someone at 9? Does it involve trading for there's so many variables. And Carr is right. Most of those variables, he has absolutely no control over.
Mention that the feelings are mutual. How does that feel like us going into the offseason when obviously an offseason can be very uncertain for a lot of people, even in this locker room?
100%. And nothing's ever promised in this game. And y'all know me, man. I'm positive about everything. But my conversations with Mickey, with Miss Benson, with Riz and Clint and everybody, it's been super positive. And I'll never speak for them. I'll let them speak for themselves. But I feel excited about being here because I feel like we finally, not only, the last 16, 17 games or whatever, played really well, but also my wife and I have been able to, do what we do in the community. That's super important to me. I'm super passionate about our city and our fans and this organization and my teammates, and I feel like we finally starting to put our thumb down on who we are, and people are getting to see who we are, and that part's exciting for me. But also this is a business. When you're going to be 34 and you make a certain amount of money, I'm never surprised by anything. My brother always told me if they got rid of Peyton Manning, they can get rid of you. And that is the truth. And I've always believed that since day one I got in the NFL. And so for me, I'm fully confident, but at the same time, nothing ever surprises you, But I've had great conversations with everybody.
The SpiderMan meme where they're all pointing at each other? That's Carr, Kubiak, and Rizzi pointing at each other going, do you want to be back? And then the next one says yes. And then the next one says yes. And the next one says yes. And it's all of them saying, yes, we all want to be back. But the fact of the matter is, they're not the ones making the decision. And if one of them falls, more than likely all three of them fall. Very, very unlikely that there's a new head coach coming in who would keep Kubiak, who would then choose to keep Carr. None of it kind of makes sense. It's all, unfortunately, they're all kind of on their own independent little islands. And Carr is right. If you can get rid of Peyton Manning and you think about some of the stuff that we've seen transpire, even just this year, the whole idea, or let's say last 2 years, the whole idea of Team A is financially obligated or financially married to or whatever certain player because of whatever clause or contract or number. I think you can take a look at Russell Wilson. I think you can take a look at Kirk Cousins and realize that's really just not it. Teams will find a way to get out of contracts. They'll find a way to get out of situations. And if it means saving $8 million here, $10 million there, they'll take it. Kirk Cousins, insane. We said when it happened, horrible signing. We said when it happened, wasn't going to work out. We were there. I never in a million years thought it would be a less than a season thing. Never in a million years did I think, yeah, he'll be benched at week 15, and then he'll be released in the offseason. I thought, okay, keep Cousins around for a year, maybe keep him around for another year. See the first year out, then play Penix. Maybe Cousins helps Penix develop the second year. You play Cousins for 8 games. I never thought it was okay, well, thanks for the 14 games, Kirk. We're cutting you. And then just eating $60 million dead cap. Insane. Absolutely insane. With Russell Wilson, with that trade to Denver and the contract, I never thought you signed somebody for that much money, and then a year or 2 years later, you're just eating it, and you're willing to let them walk. But it happens all the time. So yeah, Derek's absolutely right. It happens to a lot of players in a lot of different situations, but it's all kind of the same thing where it's a business.
What do you think this team needs in a head coach? Like, what are the characteristics they should be looking for in a head coach?
Well, I think
Good question for that reporter. I always like to give a tip of the cap when a reporter asks a good one. That was a good one.
you have to be able to demand a room. You got to be able to control a room. At this point, not a lot of guys need motivation. We're professionals. We know what it takes to get ourselves ready to go. But there are times in camp. There's times where a word from a coach and an inspiration or a motivation is needed, and someone that can control the room, control the temperature, can gauge the temperature. Real people person. That's the most important part. Your coordinators are going to do their thing. They're going to control the offense and the defensive scheme and coaching that every day. But head coach has to be a leader of men. And I've always felt that way. Reminds me of, Rich Bisaccia. Rich Bisaccia is the best leader of men I've ever been around, And I told y'all, Riz reminded me of him this year as, the way he can lead men and the way he can, motivate us. And, hopefully he gets every chance to have the job because we loved him. But we all in this circle know, it's all out of our control. So, being a leader of men, though, is very important in this game.
You mentioned some of those positive signs, in the last some odd games.
Yeah.
If you were talking to a fan, right, and they were saying why should they be encouraged in the future, and what's next for the Saints, what would you say?
Well, whenever we were all out there, it looked pretty darn good, and having those reps and having that time on task, I'd say it looked really good. And I think we all enjoyed those times, myself included. Hopefully we get a chance to do that. And, again, you never know what the future holds. You never know, what's going to happen and all those kind of things. But very proud of what we were able to put on tape. The silent movie. Coach Dub always talked to me when I was, 17, 18 years old. He said, football is all about the silent movie. What's that film say? I don't care what you say. What's the film say? And when we turned the film on, when we were all out there, it looked pretty darn good, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do that again someday.
Agree. I very much agree. Some other part of that is that, and I think Saints fans are going to resonate with this, but it did look good at times. And it did look, the first two games looked like the best offense in the NFL. And yeah, when everyone was out there, no doubt about it. It did look pretty darn good, to steal a phrase from Derek. But at the end of the day, Saints are a 5-win team. That's the silent movie. And the silent movie is, okay, well, we're the 9th overall pick. We won 5 games. We last in the division, 4th. We were moved off of some players, traded Marshawn Lattimore. That's a silent movie. So, yeah, it looked good at times, but didn't look good enough. And that part of the silent movie does speak volumes.
What's the next step for the rehab process?
Just getting cleared from all the stuff. I still got to get cleared from certain protocols and get clear all the physical stuff and all that kind of stuff, which it should happen here in the next couple weeks. And so that's number one, taking care of my body.
Respect. I don't know if y'all can see this. It's behind me or down here. Whatever lady this is holding the WGNO mic and the Fox 8 mic is double clawing these two mics. One hand, absolute raptor claw, holding these two microphones. So big shout out right there.
Especially, as, just being honest, as you get older, you got to do that even more than you do the work. And so taking care of my body is number one, and, getting away from the game mentally, and really just getting around my family, getting around my wife, spending time with her, praying about, what the future holds for us as a family and for this year and all those kind of things. And, we usually do that every year, but, that's especially important now.
Now that the season's over, are there any surgical options that re-enter the picture?
No, I don't have to.
Good question, too. So he asked, I'm sure you heard it, but he asked if there were surgical options now that, because Carr was trying to play. He was trying to play. We all heard the reports of them shooting up his hand and whatnot. So he was absolutely trying to get on the field. So now that there is no field to be on, now it's okay, well, is there a surgery where you take the surgery, it's bada bing, bada boom, realest guy in the room, or not?
We did some like checkup scans just to make sure and all that, and everything was healing nicely. And so thankfully, I'm not going to have to do that as long as it keeps going, the way it's going. Because that would just be annoying and set back a little bit. But I don't have to do that right now.
Eric, are you happy here?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I freaking love my teammates, love this organization. Miss Benson is unbelievable. Mickey's been unbelievable to me, and everyone upstairs. Every interaction I've had with our community and our fans here, when I go out to dinner and stuff like that, it feels like a college atmosphere. The love for the Saints, the love for us, the support that we have as players, even when it's hard. I had a couple, I'll say young ladies, they were older ladies, but come up to me and say, "Don't worry, you just take care of yourself and you come back." It's like just the love they have for us just as people, They're like, "You need to be a dad right now," and it's just, it's adorable, But for me, I have thoroughly enjoyed my time, and it just sucks that, with all the injuries that we weren't able to play a lot this year. For me, missing one game is way too many, and not being able to do that made it not as fun because I couldn't be out there to help. Especially when you feel like you can help. But besides that, I 10 out of 10 have enjoyed my time here and wouldn't change it for anything.
Players, your stage of your career sometimes want to win at a high level.
Yes.
I mean, how frustrating, how much will that determine maybe your future?
Yeah. All I want to do is win a championship. That's literally all I care about. When I was a kid, I dreamed of being a professional quarterback. God placed that in my heart. Even when I wanted to play basketball, I knew what I was going to do, and I ended up doing this, and all I've ever wanted to do is play quarterback and win championships. And I've been able to break records and Pro Bowls and take care of my family, and that was never my dream. My dream was to win. And so, yes, when that goes in part of, praying about, what does it look like? What does everything look like? I put it all in God's hands, and I've always done that my whole life, and He's never let me down, And so I got to get away from it mentally, because it's just been hard. The injuries, the rehab, it's like Groundhog Day. It's tough, mentally. And so I got to get away from that. But, yeah, all I want to do is win. And so hopefully, we can, figure that out and do that here because, we believe that, when we put it all together, we're a pretty darn good football team.
Do you expect the organization to include you in any decision-making, head coach? Or?
I personally never want to be the reason someone does or doesn't get a job. But I have had conversations where they do want to know what I think. And so
I'd be very surprised if Carr is involved in the head coaching search unless the head coach is John Gruden. But, I mean, that would be very, very, very surprising if he was involved.
Anytime that someone asks what you think, that's a good thing. They care about what you have to say. So, the main part of that is that hopefully over the last 2 years inside this building, I've proven to everyone in this building that all I care about is winning, and that's all I want to do. And they trust what I have to say by what I've shown them, not by what I've said. And so far that's been the case. And as an older player, you appreciate that. Awesome.
I'll tell you what. I'm no body language expert. I'm no linguistist, if that's even a word, and I ain't talking pasta. It seems like Carr. Maybe it's just me, but it seems like Carr kind of sees the writing on the wall. A lot of the stuff he said seemed like he would like to be here, but sometimes it's not in your control. I'm looking forward to Fresno, looking forward to dates, It just seemed, and maybe it's just, I'm sure he's in a very not a great space where you're rehabbing, you can't play, your team is losing, like it's the end of the year, all that stuff probably does take a toll on you, and he might just be kind of wearing it on his sleeve. But on one hand, I don't blame him. Carr's not dumb. Carr's a veteran. So he understands, this is a very pivotal moment in his career as far as we said it from day one. His contract was basically like a 2-year deal where 1 and 2 were virtually guaranteed. 3 and 4 were much, much more. We'll see what happens, and we have saw what happens. And I think Carr understands that. And Not to mention, like, there's $30 million in the balance for Derek on will he be on the roster or not. Now, granted, like, that can all be, he can find that money in other places if he signs with a different team, whatever, but there's a lot. There's a lot happening. And I think Carr was honest with this interview. I think he understands that things are in limbo, which we've explained, and they are in limbo. And, so I think this was a really good interview with Carr. I think he was transparent. I think he was honest. And as always, we appreciate the honesty. But and good stuff from New Orleans Football per usual. Ladies and gentlemen, get on down in them comments below. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.